Check that out. Oh, that's cool. Man. Wow, they have improved the quality of these things. Man. I mean, I would definitely pay to check that out. Wait, though. Wait. If that's me, if I'm a wax statue, does that mean I'm dead? Ah, crap. I just got enough stamps for a free sub. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to VHS on Tape. My name is Keith, and on this channel, I do movie reviews for horror movies that came out in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, hit that subscribe button. Also, click the bell icon. That way you'll be notified when I upload new videos. Alright, today we're taking a look at Waxwork.
It looks a little spooky. Do you think we should do this?
No, it's not. Trust me, it'll be fine. Now, Waxwork is a movie that a lot of you have probably already seen. It's the type of movie that you'd see on USA Up All Night back in the day. In fact, they actually did play this on USA Up All Night. It came out on June 17th, 1988 and comes in at 1 hour and 35 minutes. It had a $3 million budget. The movie was written and directed by Anthony Hickox. And this was actually his first movie that he directed. He also makes a small cameo in it as English Prince. He would later go on to direct more films, including Hellraiser 3 and Warlock the Armageddon. Waxwork was released by Vestron Pictures. They're the company responsible for such films as Little Monsters, a decent one, and Dirty Dancing. And actually, speaking of Dirty Dancing, Netflix has a show right now called The Movies That Made Us. I believe it's only 4 parts, but in the first episode, they actually cover Dirty Dancing. And it's actually really interesting, and you learn a lot of, I guess, fun trivia about the movie. If you have Netflix, I definitely recommend checking it out. Now, Waxwork is the story of 4 college friends who get invited to a private midnight showing at a wax museum. Waxwork. Then one by one, they disappear until they discover that people are being killed and made to be part of the displays, all in an attempt by the caretaker to bring back to life the 18 most evil things that ever lived. The movie starts off with this random guy being brutally yet creatively murdered. I guess he's never heard of stop, drop, and roll. But maybe that's only for body fires? Come to think of it, is there something you're supposed to do for a head fire? Hey Google. Anyways, next we meet Mark, played by Zach Galligan. You probably recognize him from Gremlins and Gremlins 2. We are shown here that Mark's family is pretty well off, hence the butler, Jenkins. Next we meet Sarah, played by Deborah Foreman. You might recognize her from Valley Girl and April Fool's Day. And China, played by Michelle Johnson, you might have seen her in Dr. Giggles. It's in this scene that we also meet David Lincoln, or Waxwork Man, played by David Warner. You possibly have seen him in The Omen and Tron. And I can't help but notice that it looks like he's wearing Willy Wonka's rejected costume. This is when Sarah and China get invited to the private showing. We then see Mark show up 15 minutes late to class and get assigned a 20-page essay, then another 40-page essay for talking in class. We then meet Dana Ashbrook as Tony. He was in the original Twin Peaks. And I have to say, hands down, he's my favorite character in this movie. They all decide to go to the waxwork, but first they pregame it. And here's where we get some insight into what kind of person China is.
I do what I want when I want. Dig it or fuck off.
Once they actually get to the waxwork, they are greeted by this.
Make yourselves comfortable. Get out! Get out!
And if you haven't noticed yet, this type of movie isn't really meant to be scary. It's a horror comedy in line with Leprechaun and Cats. It has horror elements in it, but nobody hears a weird sound in their basement and thinks, oh, there might be a waxwork down there. Then they go in to look at the waxworks, which are all pretty morbid displays, but also kind of cool. Tony's lighter falls into one of the displays, and he decides to go past the rope and get it. And here's where we are shown that these aren't your normal waxworks. Once you cross over, you're in the display. Once in the display, Tony figures that he must have been hypnotized
That's it. All right. I'm hypnotized. All right.
and decides to just go with it. And that's partly why he's my favorite character. He seems like he'd be fun to hang out with. Tony then fights a werewolf and gets bitten. And I know by today's standards these effects are pretty cheesy, but I love them anyways. Then we discover that if you die while inside the display, you actually become part of it. Next, China finds a display that she would like to take a closer look at. And what I find interesting about this is that earlier in the movie, when they have China as a less likable character, they have her dressed in all black. And here, she becomes a more sympathetic character, and they switch her to being dressed in all white. I think that's a pretty clever move, and it's really subtle, but I like it. I think it works. And overall, I like this part of the movie. I think they did a good job of setting it up and actually really drawing you in. But in the end, China doesn't make it out. She does put up a pretty good fight, though. Next, Mark decides that he wants to leave, because he can't find Tony in China. Well, Sarah becomes infatuated with a Marquis de Sade display, a theme that comes up a couple of times in this movie. Mark then takes Sarah home. Wait, if the showing didn't start until midnight, and they spent that much time there, how is Mark going to get those 60-page reports done?
I'll get the maid to write the essays.
Oh, he had the maid do it. Man, what a dick. Mark, now worried that something bad happened to his friends after he can't get a hold of them, decides to go to the cops. The cops do take a look around the waxwork, but in the end, don't believe Mark. Who didn't see that coming, right? So Mark gets Sarah, and I gotta say, the only other place I've seen lockers on a college campus is on Community. Mark shows Sarah that he has seen the waxwork man somewhere before, in an old newspaper in his attic. This is where we discover that the guy in the beginning is actually Mark's grandfather. Come to think of it, Mark's house looked an awful lot like the house in the beginning scene. Well, I guess rich people aren't afraid of ghosts. Because I know I wouldn't want to live in a house where someone died from a head fire. Next, Mark and Sarah go to see Mark's godfather, Wilfie, who proceeds to chase them around like he caught them walking across his lawn. And it just so happens that Wilfie happens to know exactly what is going on in the waxworks and how to stop it. He tells them that they must destroy the displays. So naturally, they break into the waxworks. But once inside, they get caught up in two different displays. Sarah gets involved in that Marquis de Sade display that she has been infatuated with since she first saw it. And Mark is drawn into a zombie display. But he figures out that if you don't believe in it, then they can't hurt you. He escapes and goes to save Sarah and discovers that she doesn't really want to be helped. Man, it's always the quiet ones. Eventually, Mark talks Sarah into leaving, and then they are greeted by these three, while the last two displays end up being fulfilled. And all the waxworks then start to come alive. And just when we think it's all over for Mark and Sarah, Wilfie shows up in his battle chair, along with Mark's butler and a group of old men they found feeding pigeons in the park. Then all hell breaks loose. Now, apparently they had a different ending in mind that was more drawn out, but they actually ran out of money, so they ended up with what was basically a bar fight scene. Then Mark and the Marquis de Sade have a sword fight before Sarah gives him an axe to the back. Lincoln pulls out a gun, I guess we'll call it. And just when they're about to bite it, Mark's godfather, Wilfie, shows up again and shoots Lincoln, who then falls into a vat of hot wax. But before he dies, he jumps out, grabs Mark, and very casually asks,
"Would you like a closer look?"
Man, I gotta say, Lincoln stays cool under pressure. I wonder what it would take to actually rattle him. Then Wilfie gets a horrific death, only second to this one. Man, I've heard of a splitting headache, but this is ridiculous. Then the waxwork burns down, but not before Thing can escape. Now, I want to take a minute to talk about the special effects. Bob Keane did the special effects for this film. He has worked on effects for movies like Alien, Nightbreed, and Hellraiser, just to name a few. Like I mentioned before, I know by today's standards, a lot of these effects might seem really hokey, but I really appreciate them. I mean, I think it's amazing how much work went into not only making them, but then with things like the monster, operating them too. And even down to the model house that they used for the fire at the end. I think overall, Bob Keane did an amazing job with the special effects in this movie. And now for some fun facts. Hickox actually wrote the script for this in 3 days after getting into a car accident with the producer looking for a script. They were turned down by every studio that they approached, including Vestron. But once the company's president read the script, he changed his mind and they made the movie. Bob Keane spent 18-hour days for 8 weeks working on the monsters in this film. Oh, well, according to Google, there's not enough info on head fires to say how to put it out. That's right, I was just asking for a friend anyways. So, would I recommend watching Waxwork?
Yes, of course.
I think it's a fun movie to watch. Like I said, it's a horror comedy. So if you don't go in expecting to actually be scared, I think you'll probably enjoy it. I mean, who doesn't like watching 80s cheese, right? If you do want to check it out, I'll put a link in the description where you can check it out for free. Well, what do you guys think? Have you seen Waxwork? Did you like it? Let me know in the comments. In case you want to check out my last review I did, I'll put a link up. It was on a movie called Slithis.
Slithis.
God damn it! Alright, well that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.